Little to no social distancing came as the U.S. was averaging more than 120,000 new COVID-19 cases a day. And that begs the question, were those Biden victory celebrations coronavirus super spreader events? Health experts, including former Planned Parenthood CEO Leana Wen, were, quote, extremely concerned they could be. This as one Biden pandemic advisor says locking down the country for 4 to 6 weeks could control the pandemic and somehow revive the economy.
It's a false notion to keep the economy going versus COVID. When COVID is running out of control, the economy is going to be suffering mightily. So the things we have to do to get COVID under control will ultimately affect the economy in a positive way. Look no further than Asia.
Fox News medical contributor Dr. Mark Siegel taking a closer look at the plans tonight. Good evening, doctor.
Good evening, Shannon. Could those Biden victory celebrations have been coronavirus superspreader events? Well, many health experts don't see any way around it. The parties for President-elect Joe Biden came as the U.S. was averaging more than 120,000 new COVID-19 cases a day. And the CDC has warned throughout the pandemic that large gatherings of people where it is hard to keep more than 6 feet apart can spread the coronavirus. Quote, the more people an individual interacts with at a gathering and the longer that interaction lasts, the higher the potential risk of becoming infected with COVID-19 and COVID-19 spreading, the CDC writes in its guidelines for events and gatherings. Many on the left are worried about these celebrations that hit America's cities over the past few days. In fact, Dr. Leana Wen, who ran Planned Parenthood until last year, she's an emergency physician and public health professor, and she said,
we are seeing this firestorm of COVID-19 that's accelerating around the country. And there are steps that policymakers can and should be taking, but there are steps that each of us can be taking as well. And we have this magical thinking that people that we love can't possibly carry the virus.
As cases and hospitalization spike, President-elect Joe Biden is putting together his own coronavirus task force, and one of its key members, Obamacare architect Dr. Zeke Emanuel, has co-written about what he calls, quote, the fair priority model. Part of this model includes what the authors call a, quote, fair international distribution of vaccines instead of so-called, quote, vaccine nationalism. He wrote, quote, when a government reaches the limit of national partiality, it should release vaccines for other countries. This makes an account of fair allocation among countries relevant to reasonable national governments. We are members of the global health community, so being internationally minded during this ferocious global health crisis only seems fair. But keep in mind that Emanuel is also an advisor to the World Health Organization. With 10 million of the world's 50 million COVID-19 cases occurring here in the United States, it is hard to imagine a scenario where we would be exporting a new vaccine anytime soon. Unless, of course, our own charitable instincts were somehow to get the better of us. Shannon?